What up, YouTube? Back with another video. This is a clip I saw online from Deion Sanders. He's going to talk about why black fathers aren't putting their sons in baseball, and he's going to make some statements that it's about money. I'm going to give my opinion on why there aren't too many so-called black men in baseball today. So let's hear the clip.
So black fathers are now pushing their kids towards baseball. Yeah. So when the African American, the black, we're trying to be that guy, father wants to play with his son, he puts in his hands what he's accustomed to, what he wants, the direction that he wants him to go. Baseball is not the option. Back when I was coming up, we had a lot of African Americans in Major League Baseball. Now that's not the thing because they priced us out as well. Because like when you played baseball in little leagues in school, probably about 150 registered or 100. Yep. To play on a select team now is at least $2,000, wow. 2,500. So kids ain't playing. They can't afford it. They price us out. So you think that's a problem? It's a problem. Yeah. And Major League Baseball need to have resolution because that's a problem. That's the reason we don't play along with African American fathers ain't never played, so they're not pushing us to that sport. Right. And that's the best sport. When it talks to benefits, when it talks to salary, when it talks to longevity, that's the best sport. So if you got a child out there, you better go sell some water bottles. Get that boy that $2,000 and put that boy, because it's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it in the end. It's hot right now, so sometimes you better go make that money right now.
Yeah, and Deion, he made some points that there are some little leagues that do cost money to get into those more advanced or prestigious little leagues, but you can make the same statement with AAU with basketball or some programs for football, especially like in Texas and Florida. Money is always going to be a thing that's going to make it's going to be a prohibiting factor in regards to some of the leagues that you want your child to get into. But he's ignoring the big elephant in the room. So-called black boys, they aren't pursuing baseball because of the cost. They're not pursuing baseball because they're not a lot of black fathers, quote unquote, black fathers in the household. Because that's the big elephant in the room. There has been a systemic destruction or a systematic destruction of the patriarchal element of the black community. The last great so-called American black baseball players, like in the 80s and the 90s, you go back to like Ken Griffey Jr. and Barry Bonds, Ozzie Smith, Greg Vaughn, Albert Bell. They all grew up in two-parent households and so many others. They grew up before the crack epidemic in the 80s. After the crack epidemic, we saw less so-called black men in the household, and we saw more so-called black boys pursue other sports like basketball. That's like the rise of like Allen Iverson and Kobe Bryant and Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady and things, and like in the 90s. See, baseball is a sport that bonds the father and the son. So, when you play catch and go to the baseball games, you're talking about the game. Those are all, father and son come together and they connect and they bond. Mothers don't have a natural inclination to do this with their sons. A single mother is more likely to send her sons to play basketball or football or even soccer because she's more interested in those sports for whatever reason. Maybe she's attracted to the players, or maybe she just likes the sport in general. It's a lot more exciting to watch a basketball game than a baseball game. Baseball takes a lot more patience to learn rather than basketball, and you need a strong male figure to kind of teach you the game. And baseball players, they don't always have the most athletic build, unlike basketball and football. So there are more opportunities for smaller, so-called black boys to get in the sport, especially when they're younger. So that's why I said, like, the big elephant in the room is that we don't have a dominant presence of so-called black fathers in a household. And once we correct that patriarchal element in a so-called black household, you're not going to have a lot of so-called American blacks return to baseball. But we don't like to address that elephant in the room. We rather just kind of point at everything else in the room. We like to point at the dresser. We like to point at the cabinets. We like to point at the ceiling. like to critique the floor. But I don't care about all that. I want to look at that elephant right in the middle of the room. That's the big issue. And I know this is a topic that's sensitive because it's going to call out, or it's going to risk offending women. because it's impossible to solve the problem if you don't address the problem or acknowledge the problem. Because the liberal black woman, she likes to speak out of both sides of her neck. At one side, she likes to talk about the lack of so-called black fathers in the home, but in the household, you have to understand the importance of gender roles. And since the liberal black woman has joined the corporate workforce, she no longer accepts her ancestral gender role, no matter what they say. So there's always going to be this imbalance there in the so-called black household. And the crack epidemic caused irreversible damage in the so-called black community. So when uh, most women today, I mean, it's just difficult to kind of build a household with a modern day liberal black woman in regards to, just the mentality that they have. Some of them don't even know how to share a home with a man. And even the younger females today, they'll admit they don't even really want a man. They just say that they just want to have fun and want to play around with them, use his money, go on vacation, go on trips, and then use his sperm if they choose to make a baby, and then break up with them and just be the glorified single mother. So this topic is deeper than baseball. It's very layered to why so-called black boys aren't pursuing the sport. It's not just about money. Money does contribute a percentage to it, but you could say the same thing with AAU basketball. You could say the same thing with these football leagues. It's the same thing because you can go to the Dominican Republic, you see children living in poverty, and they still learning how to play baseball, and they still hitting hitting big tires and practicing their strength and their swings. So you can Google that right now. Dominican boys playing baseball. You see them in poverty, and they're still playing how to learn how to play baseball, and they're still getting drafted into the league. So that's just an excuse that Deion Sanders is talking about. It's not the real issue. All right. So thanks for everybody. Let me know what you think. All right. Peace.